A few days ago, January 27th, Robert Grenier was published with this opinion piece in the New York Times. Robert is a former, Mr. Grenier is a former CIA station chief for Pakistan and Afghanistan, Iraq mission manager, and director of the CIA's Counterterrorism Center. The title, How to Defeat America's Homegrown Insurgency, subtitle, We don't need new laws, we need law enforcement, accountability, and a willingness to listen. Now, right away, so many things can be revealed, picked apart, deconstructed just from this headline, subtitle, and where we see our author coming from with this. First of all, America's homegrown insurgency, as opposed to the insurgencies that America, the federal government, grew in other places. America's foreign-grown insurgencies. There's already, this language is a huge admission of guilt on the perspective that our author is representing here on behalf of government. That America grows these insurgencies. And even that this one in the United States, whatever it is, and we'll get to what he's referring to in his specifics, of course, but that this was a astroturf insurgency, that this is a inorganic as opposed to an organic uprising. But when you say your objective is to defeat the insurgency, this is one of those times I want to use words carefully, make sure that we're all on the same page with definition. Generally, insurgency, according to the definition that we get from putting the word into Google, is that it is an active revolt or uprising. Simple as that. And you could say that maybe this insurgency that Mr. Grenier is referring to is, it isn't a revolt, it is an uprising, but it is, if that's the case, not necessarily virtuous for simply being an uprising or an act of revolt. But to say that it needs to be defeated is to say that we must defend the status quo. So today, my response is not, oh no, let me criticize Mr. Grenier in his article, How to Defeat America's Homegrown Insurgency. Let me propose instead how to fix America's homegrown insurgency. Now, first off, Mr. Grenier is, of course, looking at as this picture with the article is captioned, Insurgents Storming the U.S. Capitol on January 6th. The United States may be witnessing the dawn of a sustained wave of violent insurgency. And the funny thing is, the picture on the here is, okay, dude wearing a hoodie, says some kind, says Liberty on it. And it looks like he's carrying a shield made from, I don't know, two planks of wood. To call this an insurgency, what we saw on January 6th, is an insult to real insurgencies everywhere, or even to describe it as an attempted coup, perhaps an attempted block of an administrative process in an attempt to have a symbolic protest. What happened on January 6th, and we've picked this apart more than I already cared to, in acknowledgement of the historic significance of a false flag insurgency being staged as part of this duopoly drama to keep us all sucked into the Washington, D.C. personality show. There's a reason they call it Hollywood for ugly people. So when you see that they're calling this an insurgency, this was a protest that turned into a riot, that as a breaking and entering was at best let it happen on purpose. This is the capital of the United States of freaking America, the world's greatest empire at this point, and they can't secure the Capitol for a bunch of protesters, like, you know, neckbeards, like, no, like this Liberty guy going out there. And this was not, I don't think this was even an insurgency. Honestly, this in and of itself, insurgency light, is it revolt or rebellion to say, no, you should have a red flavored leader instead of a blue flavored leader, who incidentally used to be a blue flavored voter and donor, and Cheeto Jesus is our guy and down with Biden, stop this. No, that's not. So you want to fix the insurgency, recognize what the real insurgency is, because there was a legitimate angst behind that. There is a legitimate disenfranchisement that Trump's populism tapped into. But Mr. Greer says in his story, as a former overseas operative who has struggled both on the side of insurgents and against them, the past few days have brought a jarring realization. We may be witnessing the dawn of a sustained wave of violent insurgency within our own country, perpetrated by our own countrymen. 3 weeks ago, it would have been unthinkable that the United States might be a candidate for a comprehensive counterinsurgency program, but that is where we are. Now, right away, it's like, oh my gosh, okay, you got to pitch for another big government program, more law. And now, one of the things, again, back to the subtitle, he says we don't need new laws. And in a sense, he's correct, and even technically for his messed up, serve the lick the boots objectives, I don't disagree. We don't need new laws. The average American commits 3 felonies a day. There's a book by that title written by a law school professor. Look at Columbia, I think. Look it up. 3 felonies a day. Everything is criminalized. They can arrest anybody at any time for what, because they don't like you. We need law enforcement. Yeah, and just as an aside on this, just to give you the update of like where we are with this today. Because as if it wasn't bad enough, I cannot talk about this without mentioning the virus, which shall not be named, the coronavirus. Now, Reason.com has this headline: federal mask cops to start targeting travelers today. Yeah. Now, this is just don't worry. It's just planes, trains, buses, subways, taxis, car services, boats, transportation hubs, per a new order from the CDC that took effect today. Masks must be of a style approved by the federal government and must fit properly. Failure to comply will result in being prohibited from traveling, booted from the transit in question, and potential criminal penalties. And I can't wait to see people testing this. I mean, you want to see what's the real insurgency? Let them see your smile. That's the act of defiance now. Let them see your smile. I can't wait to see videos of people testing this and testing the enforcement and testing if they're going to recognize medical exemptions, if they're going to be at all humane about this, if you have a right to freedom of movement, or if that's a privilege that is going to be taken away because now, did you not remember that the global war on terror includes where you live and is now coming home? What was critical about declaring war, with Iraq and Afghanistan? Not declaring war, but the global war on terror policies. You're no longer civilians. You are no longer even U.S. citizens entitled to the full rights and privileges associated with the Bill of Rights and the Constitution of the United States of America, which, as any words on paper, surely protect your rights. No, you are now a potential enemy combatant. And if you're not, what are you doing wrong? Well, don't worry, we'll get to that. We'll get to fixing the insurgency here. Trust me. So Back to Mr. Grenier. Overrepresented among the ranks of angry but ordinary citizens who stormed the Capitol on January 6th were others. I'm sorry, I got to go back into my spy voice. A spy narrator, hardly ordinary, who committed to violent extremism. The Proud Boys, the Three Percenters, the Oath Keepers, Christian national chauvinists, white supremacists, and QAnon fantasists, among others. Some of these groups may have planned their incursion in advance, but they could not have breached the Capitol if not for the wave of populist anger that swept them forward and over the barricades. All right, so he goes on, tells us sort of why we should be afraid of Jake Angeli, the QAnon shaman, and all the goofy fucks that followed them into zip tie guy. No, I mean, and I like, I don't want to say, yeah, goofy fucks. I don't want to demean well-intentioned people taking risks to make their voices heard. But compared to real insurgencies, January 6th included way too much goofy fuckery for my taste. And to see it for what it is, that there were journalists like our producer CJ there to expose this and Cash Jackson for what it was, is so important to what I'm saying now. Like, don't believe this hype. Don't fall for it. So he goes on. The challenge facing us now is one of counterinsurgency. The one may recoil at the thought it provides the most useful template for action, which must consist of three elements. First, the easiest and most straightforward is criminal justice. We should continue to track known extremists and investigate and bring to account those who commit crimes. We have the expertise and the infrastructure to do so, and do it while preserving civil liberties. That's a joke, right? Yeah, sure. All right. We need no new statutes, nor should we import. All right, I guess I gotta go back to the CIA spy narrator voice. We need no new statutes, nor should we import terrorists. I don't know if I can get through this whole thing. Wow, all right. So the second element, we must isolate and alienate the committed insurgents from the population. And this gets to, a bigger theme of censorship and control of the conversation. Why they demonize, why, badjacking, why the new COINTELPRO is just so much more insidious. What do they have to do to render these movements ineffective? They don't just start killing people in the United States. They have a much more direct control over the narrative, over the mainstream media. If they want to make Enrique Tarrio look bad, they'll set him up. They got everybody by the balls if they want. Fortunately, they'll never be able to go back and say that I was an informant. But if they wanted to set me up, I think I'd be able to defend myself against the trap that Enrique walked into a little better. But that's why I've never been so successfully used, perhaps as a pawn to lead an organization of such national significance since I was involved with the Iraq Veterans Against the War. Yeah. Speaking of which, Mr. Grenier goes on. We must isolate and alienate the committed insurgents from the population, just as Al-Qaeda in Iraq depended on a much larger community of disaffected Sunnis for tacit support and recruitment. We face the prospect of there being a mass of citizens, sullen, angry, and nursing their grudges, among whom the truly violent minority will be able to live undetectably, attracting new adherents to their cause. Yeah, all right. So then there's a lot more flowery language of this, right? Like, we need to come together. We need to be unified in defeating the insurgents and get over polarization and talk to your neighbors. Okay, yeah, I agree. Okay. It's nice to sprinkle all those feel-good propaganda points in here. But here we go on. The final element of the plan concerns insurgency leadership. Mr. Trump's transition from mere subversion of the constitutional order to open incitement of mass violence exposes what he has long represented to the most radical fringe of his supporters, a charismatic symbol. By shamelessly espousing the politics of white grievance, and convincing, so many that he actually won re-election. Mr. Trump has created the conditions necessary for the extremist's success. They know better than to take his recent ritualistic admonitions against violence at face value, and so should we. He will continue to be their champion, and his self-serving lies will be their most potent enabler. All right, so now he's saying it's important to support the impeachment, but this is a whole other just insight into the mentality of what is being foisted upon us, what is being used, what January 6th, the false flag insurgency, is being used as the excuse for. When they say, think of it as an insurgency, when they use this language, they call you domestic extremists. When they lump libertarians, I mean, people who espouse universal nonviolence is the goal, they lump us in with violent extremists. Yeah, that should tell you something. And where they're going with this is scary. Okay, so this guy, Mr. Grenier, was, because of this, interviewed yesterday on NPR. Former CIA officer treat domestic extremism as an insurgency. And some of the questions he asked are rather telling here. As someone who has watched many violent insurgencies unfold in various countries around the world, what felt the same to you? What felt different? He says, I don't want us to be one to suggest that somehow the United States is going to in any way resemble Iraq or Afghanistan at the height of violence. Pretty sure you just did. Pretty sure that's what you're doing, Mr. Grenier. You're suggesting that well, first of all, at least that's the standard we should be compared to. Like, hey, America, just because the global war on terror is coming home and we're taking away your rights and we're defeating the insurgency that is actually addressing your grievances and challenging the status quo, don't worry, it'll never get as bad as Iraq and Afghanistan. You are still privileged, protected citizens of the empire as long as you toe the line and repeat the emperor's message and make sure that we put these domestic insurgents and terrorists in their place. Yeah, this does deserve translation from bootlicker language to normal human English. All right. So I think, as in any insurgency situation, you have committed insurgents who are typically a relatively small portion of the affected population, but what enables them to carry forward their program is a large number of people from whom they can draw tacit support, and that's what I'm primarily concerned with here. I think that what is most important is that we drive a wedge between the violent individuals and the people who may otherwise see them as reflecting their interests and fighting on their behalf. What do you do about it? I think the most important element of the struggle, if you will, is information. We're not talking about an alien population here. There are friends of mine who believe that the election was stolen. There are members, oh my gosh, Mr. Grenier is friends with terrorists. All right. There are members of my family who have, all right, I got to go back into the voice, right? There are members of my family who have very strong doubts, and I think there are a great many people who don't trust you, Mary Louise. I hate to be the one to break it to you, who don't trust NPR or the New York Times. But again, I think this is the work of a nation. I mean, it's trite to say that we need a national conversation, but in fact, that's what we need. So this is where I get to that we need to engage. Is there anything that could be done? Part of it is simply setting the proper national tone. Now he's saying that he's asked about saying that Trump must be convicted in his Senate impeachment trial. I think it's a national security imperative precisely because he is seen as the charismatic leader of a great many violent people. And I think that needs to be countered. So long as he is there and leading the resistance, if you will, which he shows every sign of intending to do, he was going to be an inspiration to very violent people. Now, God, Trump was just president. He furthered the status quo. Yeah, and I call him a socialist, fascist, communist. But let's be honest about these terms. How can you say that we don't live in a communist country when the federal government has 10 out of 10 of the planks of the Communist Manifesto at least partially in effect, and 7 or 8 of them completely in effect? Trump didn't counter fiat currency, federal control of lands, progressive income tax, the social security system. None of that. No. Trump maintained the communist status quo. That is not the resistance. That is not the insurgency. So again, seeing it for what it is, what they are trying to defeat is the real insurgency, the libertarian insurgency. And yeah, it's bigger than that, just what the libertarian label applies to, with people who are actually challenging the status quo, not just trying to get their guy involved. So they're making this about the violence, right? It's the and that was the problem with January 6th. And I don't want to say that anybody on the protesting side is at fault in this sense, because they were clearly egged on in doing this. They were led into this. Part of, there was not just a let it happen on purpose, but there was an incitement. There was a suckering, and people they took that anger. They got the Trump people riled up and angry, and when they were angry, they got them violent, right? They got them to smash windows, to hurt cops. And a lot of people who don't have any sympathies to people standing up to the powers that be, as we do here with Adam versus the Man, go, oh my God, they killed 2 cops. Violent insurgents. And they fell for it. And again, it's like saying, you fell for a mugging because you got suckered into your manifesting your anger in a protest, in a crowd that is inherently vulnerable to infiltration, to subversion, to manipulation. And what you did is gave them the chance to do this, because it was, and it's not just the people who broke into the Capitol, so to speak. It's not just, Ashley Babbitt, hashtag say her name. It's not, it's everything behind that. And so this is where I get to fixing the insurgency. Finally, we go to Psychology Today, and this is a story. This is from April 7, 2014. Douglas Kendrick, PhD, and I've covered this before. There's a video on my channel from years ago, Violent versus Nonviolent Revolutions. Which way wins? That's the title of this story. Why boycotts outperform bombs. During a training as a political scientist, Erica Chenoweth was taught to assume that the most effective tool for achieving political goals is violence. After all, no evil dictator is going to give up his autocratic power without a fight. And throughout history, there have been numerous examples of tyrannical governments viciously crushing their opposition. And by the way, there's a connection with my friends, I guess the guy, I'm not a friend, fan of Steven Pinker, brought Chenoweth to Arizona State University as part of a workshop on the origins of violence. And what they showed, what their study here, where they painstakingly collected the data on 323 violent and nonviolent political campaigns since 1900. So to qualify for the analysis, the movement had to be substantial in size, involving at least 1,000 people active in the movement. They counted a campaign as successful if the goal had been achieved within 1 year at the peak of the event, as when Corazon Aquino and the People Power Revolution peacefully ousted dictator Ferdinand Marcos from the Philippines in 1986. See, like, did you hear about that? Did you learn about that in your government history class? That, yeah, there was a revolution that ousted a dictator in the Philippines in 1986. No, and it's not violent. If it bleeds, it leads. So it didn't make the headlines. It wasn't something that stirs up angst, that keeps you in this false idea. It is a myth of statism that is foisted upon us, that is violence and conflict are the ways to resolve conflict, as opposed to de-escalation and peace and nonviolence. So when Chenoweth started out, she was fairly certain that the violent political campaigns would be more likely to accomplish their goals, but she was wrong. Nonviolent campaigns have a 53% success rate and only about a 20% rate of complete failure. Things are reversed for violent campaigns, which were only successful 23% of the time, and complete failures about 60% of the time. Violent campaigns succeeded partially in about 10% of cases, again, comparing unfavorably to nonviolent campaigns, which resulted in partial successes over 20% of the time. Why the difference? So they have a book, Why Civil Resistance Works, several answers. Nonviolent campaigns typically attract more participants, including women, elderly folks, and others who do not want to take on the risks or the moral burdens of running around with guns and explosives. How about that? But are willing to pass on information about government atrocities and to engage in boycotts, strikes, or nonviolent protests. Second, when a tyrannical government acts to suppress a nonviolent movement, it is more likely to backfire. How about that? Government security forces don't want to fire on unarmed civilians, especially when the crowd might include their mothers, daughters, friends, and neighbors. And if unarmed civilians are attacked, other citizens are likely to mobilize, and the government loses support from the international community and from the other pillars of its own society, such as the local media and the financial sector. Don't fight them. Withdraw your consent. See the difference, right? And generally, there's more good news when the government is overthrown non-violently. The new government is more likely to be democratic, less likely itself to be overthrown, and is at least more in line with the will of the people and more stable. So, all of this raises questions about the wisdom of government policies that involve sending arms to revolutionaries who often replace the current violent and tyrannical government with another one, eliciting long-standing hatred for the governments that help the current dictators take hold. Now, like, why should governments send arms to revolutionaries? Well, because they want one side to win that they can control. At least that's how the U.S. federal government, the CIA, that's how the U.S. military, that's why and how they do it, right? But this also suggests a strategy for those of us on the side of the real insurgency, which is de-escalate, commit to nonviolence, commit to love and to harmony and to healing and to bringing together, and by doing so, making this position of Robert Grenier, the CIA guy, just laughable. So the NPR interview, the last question here, you were station chief in Islamabad on 9/11, which meant it suddenly became your problem to find and kill or capture Osama bin Laden and other senior al-Qaeda leaders without comparing American citizens to al-Qaeda. Okay. Are there lessons that you take from that? Yes. And that is that, even at the seeming height of the crisis immediately after 9/11, there really weren't that many members of al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. And the thrust of our campaign there was, yes, to hunt down al-Qaeda, but primarily to remove the supportive environment in which they were able to live and flourish. And that meant fighting the Taliban. And I think that is the heart of what we need to deal with here, hunting down people who are criminals. That is something that which U.S. law enforcement is very well capable of doing, and doing while preserving fundamental civil rights. Who's he talking about here? People who are criminals in this context. People who are revolting. Not like revolting to the senses, but revolting against authority. People in active rebellion. Talking about hunting us down. No. I'm a lover, not a fighter. Because that's where the real revolution comes from. Right? From love. So as he says here, the last part of his answer, that's in some ways the easiest part of the problem. The difficult part of the problem is affecting the environment within which violent elements otherwise would be able to thrive. And similarly, on behalf of we the people, those of us who care about freedom, we do have to affect our environment in such a way that violent elements are not able to thrive within our movement. And be absolutely 100% committed to nonviolence, to compassion, to de-escalation. And so finally, I have a glorious segment here we are coming to the end of, at which it is finally most appropriate for me to quote John Lennon in a quote I have been butchering for years now, but I think truly speaks to what it means to truly stand up to the man. As John Lennon said, the establishment will irritate you. Pull your beard, flick your face to make you fight. Because once they've got you violent, then they know how to handle you. The only thing they don't know how to handle is nonviolence and humor. And that is how to fix America's homegrown insurgency. And today is February 3rd, 2021. My screen is frozen, so here we go. Refreshing here. I know CJ's been doing a great job keeping up through that segment. I hope you guys had as much fun with that as I did. Let's get Comment Jim Freedom up here before anything else to check in with the audience with the comments. Jim, I'm sorry I didn't get to see the comments, anything other than the first few you put on screen there, the good mornings and highs and hellos. But I hope that's fun. How to fix America's homegrown insurgency. You with me? Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm ready. My camera's a little low, so let me deal with that real quick.
All right. So
yeah, like Love for Pizza said, too bad it was for Trump with this particular insurgency.
Well, don't say too bad the duopoly drama was about duopoly politicians. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, Rob B said that insurgent seemed somewhat staged, and some people followed some, quote, self-proclaimed leaders into a trap.
Right. Well, I mean, the real insurgency, and I couldn't figure out a way to work my bumper sticker cliche into that opening monologue, but it's grow governments, not vegetable, or sorry, grow vegetables, not government. It's the yeah. Sorry. Yeah, it's funny backwards too. But like that's the real insurgency, the real way to be an active revolt. I guess now I haven't smoked weed in like 30 minutes, and now it's getting to me. I can't talk. It'd be like right in that sweet spot. But yeah, the real insurgency is in lifestyle and stepping back and withdrawing your endorsement and support from the system and homesteading and living free. And I mean, even if you have to live in a city, there are a lot of ways to live a lot more free than just being, part of the herd, being on your own course. So, speaking of which.
Well, we got somebody that wants to, he had Gary Schutz. I called you once and messed up your show, but I am listening. I promise not to mess with you this time. I don't think we're doing call-ins today, though, so you wouldn't get the opportunity, but save that for next time.
We have at least one caller. Stephen McClure is going to be calling with an update for Homefront Battle Buddies and some of our plans with the nonprofit. Still moving strong, a little behind my always ridiculously optimistic schedule projections, but that is coming along. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Stephen McClure is calling in then, because I actually told him, he said, how do we call in, and is there a StreamYard link? And I said, I'm not sure we're doing callers today, but you just corrected me, so I'm glad you did.
I'll send him the link directly just to make sure he has it here.
Okay, good. He'll have it from you then. Perfect.
So we got a bit of a theme for today's show. Aside from the how to fix the insurgency, the theme for the rest of the show being social media and censorship and tech platform developments. It's a big blog I've been looking forward to doing for a while, actually. So Jim, you want to do the promos? We'll get to, and then we'll do the grab bag and Steven, and then get to our bigger tech and social media censorship block.
Okay, all right, that sounds good. There was one other thing I wanted to point out right here. Tuck police suck. He says tuck the police instead of fuck the police. I just wanted to point out he's a pretty popular YouTube channel that does those First Amendment audits down in Tucson. He hangs out with James Freeman a lot and Clash with Bow. A bunch of big YouTube channels. He's one of them.
No, I think I've seen some of those First Amendment audits, but is Tuck supposed to have? I don't get the verbiage. Like, is Tuck supposed to? Is it just part of it, like a play on his name, or is it supposed to be some other? Like play on the word fuck. Oh, for Tucson. Okay.
Yeah. Tucson police suck.
Yeah.
But his YouTube channel name is Tuck Police Suck. Yeah, I don't know.
I thought I was thinking like there would be some emasculating drag queen, weird macho, like tuck your, like, tuck.
Yeah, I
My
don't think
wife
that's
got
it.
me into RuPaul's Drag Race for a brief period last year, and it stays with you a little bit. I enjoyed it though. I can't. Well, when she gets back and we get our house is coming, man. This is really exciting. Like, I hope you can come back and uh, there's going to be some hanging drywall again that we're going to need your help with. But yeah, man, we've got a building coming. We had 2 buildings coming here for Gardenia in about 2 weeks, a little less. Pretty excited about that.
They're
Hopefully.
gonna deliver it in the snow and everything.
Well, the snow's mostly melted now. It was a foot deep at one point.
Right.
Like most I've ever seen on the ground here at one time for sure. And it's down to patches now. None more than a few inches thick. So
And you're
yeah, by then I
confident
mean
that
it's
nothing's coming
but
back.
well, it's worse now with the mud, and that's the thing is we got to wait for it to dry. And I'm gonna go start prepping the site and staking it out and digging holes while it's moist and hopefully a little easier to dig. But no, it's it's I mean the ground is mostly dry even now, but the roads are still really bad, and that's the challenge. Hopefully, though. But yeah, if it doesn't rain too much. Man, I'm loving this truck though. For those of you who haven't seen, check out the Instagram on the Garden of Freedom. There's at least one picture there with the kittens, the 6 scorpion cats of Gardenia, on the hood of the truck, and you can see how much mud has been up on that thing. It's like, oh, I'm going into oh, I get to go on a quick off-roading adventure. Yay. It's like every time in and out of town. And yesterday, I don't actually, I don't know if I can say what I did last night because of the person involved. But I got to drive out to Cottonwood, I'll say, last night. And man, I got to drive from Prescott to Cottonwood at sunset, and that's over this incredible mountain pass looking into the giant Verde Valley, and I've never done that drive like that. It was really amazing. But yeah, then I get to show. I'm like one of those trucks on the road that's like, what color was that truck before it turned into asphalt mud color? Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, it looks pretty cool. Maybe people will see it on the Instagram page as soon as I get to the end of these promos. So first, people, if you would visit adverseman.com, like you see at the bottom of the screen there. And when you get there, the first thing you should do is click on the button that says Patreon. That's going to bring you to a new page where you can check out the options to support Adam and the show. $1, $5, $10, or $50 a month. $10 is the sweet spot that gets you access to the Producers Club. The Producers Club is the private chat. It's on my phone that I'm using, so I can't show you. And you can join the public Telegram chat right here. The $10 a month that we were just talking about gets you access to the private Telegram Adam vs. the Man chat. And then after you're done with that, go back to adamversustheman.com and check out the shop, the store that CJ's put together there. Everything from shirts, beanies, hats, coffee mugs, different Adam versus the Man logos, Freedom logos. Check out all the merch and get yourself some merch, and then send Adam a picture and tag him on Twitter with your merch. And Producers Club and Better patrons get 15% off and free shipping. Thank you for reminding me to throw that in there, CJ. Next, we go to cigarfederation.com for all your tobacco habits, where you can use promo code ADAM10, ADAM10 to get 10% off your entire order. They got all kinds of exotic flavors of cigars for your tobacco smoking habits, or in tasting habits, I should say, with a cigar. And then lastly, the Instagram, where you can see that photo that Adam was just describing with the cats, the scorpion cats that have gotten so big on the mud truck. It's right there. It's the first picture on the top left.
Mud truck.
The mud truck. Mud truck.
I don't have a name for this one yet. I usually, well, I don't know. We usually name vehicles. I don't have a good one for this one.
Yeah, it'll come to you. You got to let it come to you. It's got to be organic. It's got to come to you naturally. You can't force it.
I like mud truck though. I can't even get a decal that says mud truck on it. All
That'd
right.
be cool. Let's do a
Any other
block.
critical comments?
Morose. Calvin Ingram wanted to remind you, if you didn't know, that it's important to have a sense of humor in a fighting hall.
6 million more views last month. Fucking nuts. It's nuts. That one video. What's it? I gotta check. No, I gotta check because I don't remember like the total number. Like,
It's
what's
like
that
30
video?
something million.
Yeah. Well, I see we're live right now. But let's see. Sort by most popular. No, and it's crazy to have 250,000 subs. 200. Our subs are actually going up. We're actually crawling back up now. 256,000. And to do a live show and have 23 people watching live on YouTube, you go
with thousands of new people joining recently, you would think they would be actively watching right now, but
yeah. So 34
good old
million
shadow banning.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. I mean, I hope that it doesn't get old pointing this out, but that it's you take this as motivation to say, like, look, because I made the commitment, and CJ and Jim have made the commitment to make this show happen live, and we're usually a minute or two late, but 9 to 11 a.m. Pacific time, Monday through Friday, we're gonna be here. Set an alarm, and help people grow the audience that way, because you can't trust YouTube to give you notifications. You can't. You have to find the show. Set an alarm for 9 a.m. Pacific time, Monday through Friday, to go to adamversustheman.com and get the video for yourself. Or, because you can't even go, oh, I'm going to set an alarm for later. If you watch later in the day, that's awesome. And of course, most of our audience is not live. And we appreciate all of our live audience. Well, go to adamversustheman.com, and CJ set up an incredible site there, and in one way or another, having that site allows us to show you whatever the best current destination is to get the show, because it's going to change. Like, we've been off this YouTube channel and we've been broadcasting on different channels, but we poured them all over so that they're broadcast through adamversustheman.com. In one way or another, that'll be connected to whatever's current. So yeah, I mean, it is a weird thing to see. And I don't know, are there really 23 people watching, or are they giving it to people and more people are watching and they're not counting the numbers? I mean, it's probably some of both, underreporting of the numbers, as well as the effects of shadow banning, of actually keeping our content away from people, sometimes in subtle and sometimes in obvious ways. By the way, it is cool to see my second most viewed video is at least up to 2.5 million views. Adam verbally body slams, chokes out cops at White House. And that's pretty good. And how to deal with a sobriety checkpoint 2.3. So it does look like some of my more meaningful videos are at least still creeping up in the views, but nowhere near 34 million for that. It's important to have a sense of humor in a fighting hall. Okay, enough about me being censored. Let's talk about other people being censored, shall we?
Yeah, well, you want to talk about other people being censored? I was on a live stream last night that ended up going like 2.5, 3 hours long. And I rewatched it last night to see how I looked, how stupid I looked and sounded in it. And it was there. And all of a sudden today, it no longer exists. Even the person whose stream it was can't find it in their own YouTube studio. It's just disappeared and deleted. Yep. We talked about a few things that I think I don't know, say what it is. Maybe it'll pop back up later after we're talking about this, but literally just that, no warning or nothing, just it's gone now. What are you gonna do about it? Say something.
I mean, I want to try to say something profound that's sort of like the internet equivalent to our observation about masks, and those of us who don't wear them, it's sort of like, well, we always were the ones not going along with the program, just now you can see it very clearly. It's sort of like, now that authoritarianism has moved online and is making weird shit happen, right? Like, before the internet, you didn't see the books that didn't appear in the bookstore. You didn't see the stories that got cut from the newspapers or the nightly news. They were getting cut all along. The message was controlled and censored and manipulated all along. But at least now you can see it, that we have entered this more virtual conversation. We have gotten more digitized, more online, more virtual as opposed to in person. But in some ways, with the old mainstream media of communications, you could hide easier as a censor. Now the censorship, Jim, that show was there and now it's not there.
Right.
Progress. Man, I gotta smoke weed to get through today's show. I did my intense opening monologue. I hope that was fun. I hope that was reasonably funny. I didn't expect to do
What
the
are you waiting
segment.
on? You don't have it within reach?
No. I've been
Oh,
smoking
okay.
while you've been doing this whole
Okay.
segment. But before, all right, well, now I gotta get the bong out, right? Oh, well, my bong's empty. All right, it'll be ready for the end of the show.
Smoke weed every day. Smoke weed every day.
All right. That's probably why we're getting censored, is that because Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre are big on intellectual
Every time.
property. Okay, so we have one more fun story, though, before we get to our serious news and our block on internet, social media, and censorship. So for this, we go to npr.org once again. Coup caught on camera. Myanmar woman goes viral for dance video with surreal backdrop. Now, we're going to play this video, and I don't know however much CJ wants us to just get away with playing the audio. I don't care. But we're gonna have to play this, watch this. This is wait, CJ, wait until I'm done talking and do it with the music, okay? But here's the thing: did you know that there was a coup going on in Myanmar, or did you know that there was some viral video with some woman dancing in a black and yellow outfit with a coup happening behind her? And what was that country again? The reason people know that there is a military coup in Myanmar. How does news get out when it gets attached to something like this? And actually, I thought like maybe this was some kind of journalism, not a like sneaky journal. Like when they say you can't film what's going on. Oh, I'm just making a workout video with this beautiful government building in the background. Oh, there's okay, maybe, but that's not what's happening here. So, fitness instructor King Hin Wai has been filming herself performing aerobics on the same street in Myanmar's capital city for months, but none of her videos has gone quite as viral as the one she posted on Monday, in which she inadvertently captured the country's military coup unfolding in the background. In the video, she can be seen dancing energetically to techno pop while wearing workout gear and a face. Like, the thing that pisses me off about this video still more than anything else is that she's working out outside alone for a video and wearing a mask, right? Like, all right, but anyway, so she's seemingly oblivious to the convoy of black vehicles streaming down the road behind her as Myanmar's military seizes control of the government. Yeah. Now, there's another, before we get to the video and you hear the music, 67,000 Facebook reactions on Facebook, a tweet here with 67.7 thousand likes, I guess, on Twitter. And as she wrote on Facebook, before I heard the news in the morning, the video I made for the aerobic dance competition has become an unforgettable memory. Now, here's the thing about the music in the video. It's an Indonesian song called Ampun Bang Jago, which she said was used widely on TikTok during omnibus law protests last year. Those protests in Indonesia target government reforms that critics said would harm workers and the environment. So she's not, mocking that or anything. In a way, it is this sort of dystopian, just amazing synchronicity of things in one video. As she said, I wasn't dancing to mock or ridicule any organization or to be silly. I was dancing for a fitness dance competition, as it isn't uncommon for Naypyidaw to have an official convoy. I thought it was normal. So I continued. Myanmar is under military rule following Monday's coup, in which the military detained de facto leader Aung San Suu Kyi and declared a year-long state of emergency. The military claims Aung San Suu Kyi's party won last November's election because of fraud. So at least now, thanks to Miss Y here, the world is watching Myanmar. So let's take a minute and watch her video with the original music, please, CJ, while I appropriately enjoy the world's events. Jadi semangat yo berkarya walau What did you think I meant by appropriately enjoy current events? Holy crap. Thank you. Internet, internet, internet. Please, please meme the fuck out of this. Please. Let us this is the new journalism, right? Make a dance video, do something. I don't know, maybe planking is going to make a comeback. This is how you call attention to world events in the world of new media. And I guess with that, we can get into our block here. Unless let's see, if CJ, you want to just ping me whenever Steven is ready backstage. So before we get into the sort of current events stories around our theme of social media and censorship and all the corporatocracy and government policy around this. One story I just want to share that I'm still reading right now. I'm like halfway through. It's a long article from narratively.com, Hidden History, the literally unbelievable story of the original fake news network. And this is about the CIA manipulation in Guatemala. And the subtitle here is Once Upon a Time in Guatemala, the CIA hired a cocky American actor and two radio DJs to launch a revolution and oust a president. Their playbook is being used against the US right now. And this is such a cool story, and I'm just, link will be in the notes. I'm just glad to be sharing it with y'all. I'm gonna finish reading it sometime this week. I haven't got oh man, I got so much on my plate right now. It's just amazing. Good stuff, mostly good stuff. But this is as like background food for thought. If you don't know, at least So if you don't know some of the stories of the unique fuckery of the modern American federal government, of the alphabet soup boys, of how the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, various other alphabet soup agencies, elements of the Department of Defense have been used to perpetrate some of the greatest evil and most significant manipulations of human society, of modern society. It's a pretty good place to start. Like I said, I'm halfway through. It's a long story, but link will be in the notes. And it looks like our first caller is ready. So before we get into our actual block, that is the meat of the show today, let's get Stephen McClure, Executive Director, maybe not officially yet on paper, but effectively working towards it, Executive Director of Homefront Battle Buddies. Stephen, it's been a while. How you doing, brother?
What is up, dude? Sorry for all that AR-15 falling down commotion. I want to side note something before we get started. I don't get notifications through your YouTube or your Facebook, but I do get notifications through CJ Abernathy's Facebook. So if you want to, I guess, friend CJ, that's one way to get notifications if you're watching this live.
Yeah, oh man, it's such a weird thing to think, maybe what is the cause behind this? Is it just disruption, prevent anybody in the liberty movement from getting too big and send people around and just always be disrupting the media market for libertarian media, but never make it too obvious? Although at this point, I mean, I don't know. Like, is there, how do I apply my own advice here of de-escalation? Again, it's not fighting or complaining. It's, Buckminster Fuller, build the new. And we're just sort of in this awkward position where we're like in between old and new, of like centralized, censorable, manipulated, hosts of the conversation online, to something truly decentralized. So like with us, we're focused on 5 things for distribution, whatever our audio destination is. And podcasts, you don't really have to worry about that being censored the same way. For video, we've got YouTube, but we want to get into BitChute and build that as a backup. And then we've got Patreon, and then we're building our Telegram channel. A couple of the stories we're going to be covering today are about how they're fucking with Telegram now too, and it's like, as long as this government exists, nothing is safe.
So I'm going to say this. I am not a pacifist. I am a non-aggressor. I don't swing first. So when you decide to swing on my livelihood or my ability to communicate with those I love, I swing back. So I have no problem with 15 other people creating, I won't say fake, but copycat Adam Kokesh pages and putting everything you put there. And when they shut one down, we start 10 more up. I have no problem with that. They claim to be an open source and a community board and public use. As long as you fall in line with them on every topic, which I don't think you can call it communism or dictatorship, because they're private.
Fraud.
But you can call them dicks.
No, it's fraud. It's a violation of the non-aggression principle by fraud that deprives you of either labor or expected financial compensation for your efforts by not adhering to at least the spirit. Maybe it's not fraud in a technical sense, where YouTube can say, no, but look at the fine print. We said we're allowed to be assholes and rip you off and shut you down and manipulate you and lie to you even if we feel like it. And I guess yeah, we didn't read. Okay, well then, but let's expose that that's what it is. And if it's not in that sense a technical fraud, it's a fraud in spirit. I'm okay with saying that. And that's in that sense, it's a deprivation. It's a violation, of your right to those things. But we must then be very conscientious in what is an appropriate response, still in being de-escalatory. Is that a word?
It is now.
Okay, it is now. De-escalatory.
But I came on here to talk to you about a few things, and Homefront wasn't one of them. But here's where we are with Homefront. we are a couple of days from. Oh, I say a couple of days. We're dealing with the government here. We're a point in time from getting our nonprofit status. We're working on getting a website up and running. We got a few things with that. Soon, hopefully, you'll see a website, a donate button, a store, a blog. It'll be magnificent, magnificent, and the hippies are going to pay for it.
Well, yeah, that much is around the corner, and I think that's exciting to say that we have a course laid out to get the website up and running, and have a vision for the organization laid out, and be able to accept contributions through PayPal and crypto.
Yeah.
So
I watch most of the shows. I may not catch the entire show, but I watch most of them. And there's something that I've been wanting to talk to you about since the 6th that we haven't had a chance to. CJ was, and I want CJ's input on this. I've seen pictures. I've worn body armor. I've seen people in body armor. I've been surrounded by people in body armor. Were they wearing plate carriers? Yes. I don't think most of them had plates. And I have two reasons I think this is. One, you got to be pretty fit to carry around plate carriers.
Hold on. Let me explain for people who don't have the tactical background that, if I may, when it comes to modern body armor systems typically used by military and government security forces, they often come in vests you see with the loops for mounting gear, but within that, they usually come with a layer of Kevlar built in and a plate carrier as well. But then you can have vests that have one or other or neither. You can have vests that are just fabric and carrying stuff attached to them. You can have ones that are just fabric, but they have a space to carry an actual plate, but they offer no protection outside of that plate itself. And then, like what I think you and I had, or what I had at least, typical for deployed combat troops in recent conflicts, is that you have the full thing that's Kevlar, that's a soft fabric that includes the nut protector, right, and the collar, and has spaces to slide these big uncomfortable ceramic plates in.
Yeah. So, and I didn't ever use Kevlar. I was issued the neck and the groin protector. We weren't required to wear them, so I didn't. But I did, from what I saw, because they sit differently. I've worn plate carriers on ops with and without plates in them, and they sit differently when the plates are in there. They're stiffer. You can't do this when you have plates. It's just not possible. And I saw a lot of guys doing things that aren't possible with plates. However, because the plate carriers were present, I ordered a set of plates and a plate carrier a couple weeks ago for a birthday present, and they're not in yet. Which, I mean, it's the market.
That'll
right?
get you on a list.
I don't care. I'm already on all the lists.
Yeah, no, we know you are.
Jay-Z's white party list thing. I'm not invited to that white party, which is bullshit. Or whoever it is, P. Diddy or whatever. But there's a lot of talk about banning plate carrier. Like you have to have a license to own a plate carrier and plates. In Georgia, it is currently illegal to own handcuffs without a permit, because they're considered a restrainment device, and you have to have a restrainment permit, which means you have to. This is the only way you can get them. You have to be a bounty hunter. It's licensed, and they call it something else. I think they call it a bond revocation officer.
Right.
Whatever. You're a bounty hunter. Deputy, police officer, high-end security guys can have them in some instances. But because they're restrainment devices, you have to have a restrainment license.
Can you get a license to carry handcuffs if you're a dominatrix?
I want to find that out now. Because the reason is you have to have them for your job. So I guess for your dominatrix.
It's for your job. Or does the dominatrix community have to resort to zip ties now?
Well, so this is the other part of my question.
They can't because they can't ban zip ties. I mean, it's such a silly like to ban handcuffs is such a silly thing. Can you ban all industrial zip ties that cinch and go together as easy as pulling them and looping two straight pieces of plastic in such a way that's as like at least as effective as a restraint as metal handcuffs? Yeah, like you can't ban zip ties, which means you really effectively can't ban handcuffs.
What about
I mean, they'll try. Government's done crazier shit than ban zip ties, I guess.
So I beg to differ with you.
I don't want to tempt them.
I beg to differ. I think that we might see. So I saw a lot of commotion about plate carriers. I also saw a lot of commotion about zip cuffs, which I've been put in zip cuffs by APD. And a very nice black man at a Black Lives Matter protest taught me how to get out of zip cuffs, and we walked off.
Was it by breaking the plastic?
Just taking your hand and whack.
Yeah, so then it was because the plastic was too weak. Then that's fine. Like they'll get you with thicker plastic next time, and you could still get thicker plastic for civilian or dominatrix use as needed.
So do you think that we are about to see protection device, I don't know, body armor bans and zip cuff bans?
Well, considering these are tools typically used by domestic terrorists, insurgents, I mean libertarians, then yes, absolutely. I don't. That's a really good question, Stephen. I don't know. Like, are body armor and restraining device bans or restrictions on the horizon? I'm actually surprised to hear that that's the status of handcuffs. Did you say that's for the state of Georgia?
Yeah.
Wow.
Now you can go.
How about this was America?
You can Amazon them, but when you go like into a private store, they're like, "Oh yeah, we need to see your license."
So they're not like writing tickets or busting down people's doors for owning handcuffs, but it's sort of like some places pepper spray's illegal, some places possessing handcuffs is illegal, but basically having stuff in your home or if it stays private, it's not a big deal with handcuffs.
I went into a police supply store because I was wanting body armor and I was wanting.
Hold on, Stephen. CJ put up this story. Hold that thought for just a second, please. New York lawmaker seeks to ban bulletproof vests for law-abiding citizens. So, CJ, yes, I would put in subtitle here, the firearms policy, one more time. Firearms Policy Coalition said the bill would deprive New Yorkers of the right to passive defense. Yeah, of course. So that it's happened in New York or would happen in limited areas like Georgia.
It's also
not Georgia next to Russia, Georgia in the United States. Yeah, not Soviet Georgia, American Georgia.
Well, so Georgia used to be freedom land, do as you want. And I'm gonna say something that's
if you're white.
If you're white. I'm gonna say something that's never been said on your show before. There were some kick-ass sheriffs out there. I was asked to leave a coffee shop because I refused to wear a mask, right? And I was like, okay, I'll leave. And the owner walks out of the store to confront me and tell me how I'm a threat. And I'm like, look, man, I don't wear a mask because of my religious beliefs. If you don't want me in your store, that's fine. But don't follow me outside acting like you're going to hit me.
Yeah.
Back the fuck up off me or we're going to have an issue. I need you to go back into your store. I'm going to go over here and get coffee elsewhere. He calls the sheriff's department. The sheriff's department is 100 yards away from the coffee shop. So they all, instead of getting in their car, they walk over. The sheriff walks over and goes, "Do I know you?" I'm like, "Yeah, we've met before." I tell him my name. He's like, "I remember you." And this guy comes out screaming at me. And the sheriff looks at him and goes, "Man, first of all, he explained to you that he had a religious exemption. You followed him. And I called him a bigot, right? Because he was like, oh, fuck your religion. I'm like, you're a fucking bigot. Kiss my ass.
You think it was typical Georgia Christian white dude, owner or behind the counter at a coffee shop?
During December, they play Christmas carols. But they're just overall and they have a reputation of being assholes to everybody.
Okay.
But they demanded that I be arrested and that I was a public safety hazard. And the sheriff looked at him and said, "Look, here's the deal. You have a right to wear a mask. He has a right not to wear a mask.
You have a right to ask him to leave your store, but you don't have a right to give him shit and have him arrested on the sidewalk." Oh my God.
And they were like, "He cussed in public." And the sheriff looks at him and goes, "You've cussed at me 3 times, dumbass."
There's another moral of this story I have to point out, if you don't mind, about de-escalating and just in general as like, yeah, man, peace, just fucking chill. Like, you were calm, this guy was angsty, and the cops knew that he was the one who needed their attention. You want to not get cops' attention? Don't be angry. Like, don't be yelling at people on the street.
Let me say,
I mean, common sense advice.
The Libertarian Party calls themselves the party of principles. Okay. And I think that's super important. Here's why. Republicans take stands on different topics and subjects, and the Democrats take a stand on the opposite side. Or the Democrats take a stand and the Republicans take a stand on the opposite side. Because red doesn't like blue. The Libertarians have come up with, I think it's 33 planks or something, of what we believe. One of those is property rights. I do not think that they own that store. I think they're probably leasing it. But they hold
that still gives them the property right of control. They have
exactly. So they own the property.
That's not the right term, but we know what we're talking about.
Yeah. They're in charge of the property. They asked me to leave. I left. Why? Because we uphold libertarian principles, right? And once again, I am not a pacifist. If somebody hits me or somebody pulls a gun, I'm going to do what I have to do to defend myself. I'm not going to escalate it. In Georgia, are you ready for this? There was a case in Georgia 3-4 years ago where a man hit another man. The guy that got hit pulled a knife. The guy that got stabbed pulled the gun. No criminal charges were pressed. Because in Georgia, you're allowed to escalate one step. And if somebody hits you, you're indeed allowed to stab them. And if somebody stabs you, you're indeed allowed to shoot them. I'm going to say this, though.
Only in Georgia.
I'm going to say this, though.
You are no longer allowed to even own handcuffs.
I'm going to say it's important to take note that they were both white.
Oh, yeah, of course. If it was anything else, someone would have gone to jail. Oh, wow.
So I'm seeing some firearm bans coming our way. I'm seeing some body armor bans coming our way.
Yeah.
I do think there's going to be restraintment bans. But I'm going to say something about Hamilton County, which is Chattanooga, Tennessee. I live so far north that for me to go anywhere, I have to cross into Hamilton County. Right? If I get on the interstate, I'm going into Hamilton County. Unless I head directly south, if I head east, if I head west, if I head north, I'm going into Tennessee. Tennessee holds most of the jobs for this area. You now have to wear a mask at all times. If you're not wearing a mask while working, they fine you and your employer. You're not allowed to go into people's residence. So, are you ready for this? I told my boss I can't wear a mask. My religious views. He was told about 2 days later, you either fire him or we fine you for $10,000. And we fined him for $1,000. Because in Hamilton County, or I think maybe Tennessee, if it's a corporate fine, whatever the regular fine is, it's times 10. They just add a zero. Yeah, why not? You have the money. Give us the money that you have. We know you have it. So it is now illegal to be a Christian that observes the entire Bible in some parts of the country. And it's not because of coronavirus. Because here's the deal. If they would allow me to say I have religious exemption, I can't do this religiously, we'd be fine. I would say your law's stupid.
Or that every customer in a public transaction has the right to request, or that there's going to be some disclaimer when you go to someone's house to say, you're going to choose to have someone here with a mask instead, but if you don't mind, I'm going to be doing this work.
Yeah. And
that's not even an attempt to accommodate by a voluntary choice there.
Yeah, it's so here's where we're at, and I think
because just to be clear, you would respect anybody's right to refuse to do service with you in any situation if you're not wearing a mask.
Well, what did I just say? The coffee
exactly.
shop
Just applying it, just pointing out that you're applying it consistently.
Just like if you were doing something stupid on my property, I would ask you to leave.
Right.
But I think we're at a precipice, right? Because for a long time, we said we're going to screw with potheads and homos. And we've kind of left the homos alone pretty much, at least legally. Maybe not socially, and I shouldn't say homos. We've left the LBGT community alone legally.
It was obvious you were doing a voice there.
Yeah. And we're starting to leave the potheads alone.
I say reparations for stoners.
So you brought up a very valid point yesterday about a law's been passed making this no longer criminal. Shouldn't we at least, at minimum, let everybody out of jail that's only in jail for that charge?
We'll get there. Well, I think we're going to get there, but I think it's going to be a while. There are a lot of financial and institutional interests that are at least in a position to hold onto their budgets and the momentum. But Stephen, if you don't mind, I want to go back to your original question, and I think I can answer it kind of at least comprehensively, I hope to my satisfaction, if not yours. This idea of what's on the horizon for restrictions on gun ownership rights, gun rights in general, body armor, restraining devices like handcuffs or zip ties, pepper spray, things of that nature. And what? Tasers, of course, right. I think that I don't believe that there is some massive momentum that takes us from here to a radical new reality. We already live with all of those things unfairly restricted, unjustly restricted, and restricted in a way that leads to terrible consequences every day in this country. But marginal restrictions. I think at the federal level, we may see some gun rights restrictions like we saw under Trump, right? Bump stocks. There might be the red flag laws coming into effect at a national level. And then when it comes to things like body armor, there's what I think is more likely to happen than outright bans is manipulations of the market and licensing and things like that at the federal level that just makes it way more expensive than it should be. I mean, this in and of itself is criminal to think that body armor, because of government intervention in the market for body armor, it's way more expensive than it should. Like if you're afraid, if you are a citizen, and this is an extreme scenario that I want to just say we should avoid altogether. But say you're going to a protest, right? And you want to go, you want to just show up. You want to be, it's winter. You want to wear, body armor under your winter coat, and you want to wear, a helmet that looks, not like something militaristic, but that provides protection for perhaps from bullets, or at least from rubber bullets or projectiles. Like that shit's or what?
Or marbles.
Right, yeah. Whatever it is. But that you can't just suit up for your own sake. And I really don't want this to become a thing. I'm against this being necessary, but people should be able to get access to whatever material shit you need to feel safe and comfortable going out in public it's really being denied to us by a lot of those manipulations. And then also sort of in the middle of this bell curve of possibilities, yeah, places where idiots like yourself live in Georgia, or in New York, or other hotbeds of statism. You might see. I'm really not. I'm not trying to be down on Georgia. I love Georgia, but there are certain hotbeds of statism where restrictions like that are more likely to happen. Yeah, we're gonna see some of that, but nothing earth shattering or fundamentally game changing.
Well, I think we're on the precipice where we could potentially see some amazing things, because for so long we've mistreated certain segments of the population, and we're kind of leaving those people alone now. But now what we're seeing is attacks on various religions that were never attacked before, and those people are freaking out. They don't know what to do. They're freaking out.
You mean the crackdown on churches in the United States?
So for a long time,
you were involved with, right?
The crackdown on going to church, the crackdown on the church. The church I go to now has made a decision to do everything in their power to combat COVID. I leave it alone because I'm not afraid of COVID. However, if I was afraid of COVID, I would do exactly what they're doing. They're taping seats off so you can only sit in certain areas, so that there's social distancing as you sit. They're doing multiple services so that you can have not such a congested sanctuary. They're providing hand sanitizer everywhere. Like literally, there's hand sanitizer in the seat backs, hand sanitizer at all the doors, on both sides. They're doing it the way that you would do it if you're legitimately scared. And I commend them for that. And yet, there is still a possibility that they're going to tell us that's not enough.
Because you've already submitted to their concept of safety.
So all of these things were done long before anybody started talking about passing laws to enforce it, right? So this was done of our own free will months ago. It used to be, and I talked to somebody that contacted me after your show, there's something called the Notre Dame Doctrine, which is if you're going to go into a religious building, and you know this from being overseas, if you're going to bomb a religious building, you have to have super high authority. If you're going to breach into a sanctuary, right, then there's questions about rec rooms or youth areas. But if you're going to go into the sanctuary,
well, in my case, as in civil affairs, we were often invited into mosques by local clerics, but we had our own protocol, and it was still like very careful, very sensitive, of course.
So, yeah. Well, you can invite a cop into your sanctuary. That's fine. But if they're going to come in with a warrant, they can't come in with a typical search warrant. They have to come in with an additional warrant that recognizes you as a church. They have to know what you're going to expect from them as far as being respectful, and various things. Because in the religion of Islam, it is completely not okay for a man to touch a woman. So, if you're going to go into a mosque, you have to bring in female officers in case something happens with a female mosque goer. Like that's in the Notre Dame Doctrine. However, like government always does, they say, here's our laws that we have placed on ourselves because we are going to restrict ourselves for the betterment of community. And then there's this law. And then there's these laws saying we don't have to obey that law when bang, 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 and we just don't feel like it. So there's now questions about whether or not they need that special stuff. Also, in a lot of states, you don't need a search warrant if you feel like a child's in danger. Every church in America has a kid in it. So they could say, I was afraid they were going to hurt that little kid. I was just being deputy dang good.
COVID is dangerous.
Oh.
That's
so
you might give that kid COVID. Careful, that's on the horizon. Although I do think overall it does look like things are de-escalating with that. I am hopeful. Tomorrow, Stephen, I should say tomorrow, we're going to do a big COVID block for the show. We got to get caught up on COVID and this enforcement with federal travel on masks. It's getting scary. But CJ has a comment question for you both. How long before Democrats push a mask ban again? Because it was Democrats that went after masks in the KKK era. Well, no, CJ, we're going to totally get into this tomorrow, and it's happening now, and it's happening incrementally, and that's the insidiousness of the state. It's the frog in boiling water. But Stephen, we got to get to some of our censorship stories today. Please give us the complete pitch, though. Call for volunteers for Homefront Battle Buddies and how people can reach you.
So, if you would like to help with Homefront Battle Buddies, I would like to thank you right now. If Jim, I will throw a comment up with my email, but my email is pretty easy. My name's Stephen Dean McClure, so my email is going to be S as in Stephen, D as in Dean, McClure29@gmail. We are working on a website. As soon as we have a website, I'll have a more official email. But for right now, if you need anything or if you want to help, just shoot me an email there, and I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you. Y'all have a great day. Stay free. Don't give in to tyrants. Bye.
All right, last thing, while we're getting that email up on screen, I want to make sure it's on screen here. The Homefront Battle Buddies is a veteran service organization intended to help veterans, particularly combat veterans, but all vets dealing with PTSD or other issues resulting from their service that they want to deal with, using therapies outside of the mainstream. So through retreats and community organized online, we want to create an opportunity for every veteran to have access to all therapies, even normal therapies, but outside of official channels, but alternative therapies as well. I don't think we have to get into that too much. So we're looking for help with website, payment processing, donations, legal filing, fundraising, organizing, everything you can imagine with that. Forum moderators, even if you just want to be a part of hosting this conversation online as Stephen gets it set up. Boom, there's the email. Please get involved. Check it out. Thank you, Stephen.
Absolutely. Thank you, man.
All right. So, Jim, we got 30 minutes to go here before we see how much of this tech news we can get into. I think this is pretty important. 9/11 was an inside job. No, says 9/11 was an inside job. Thank you, no. All right, so we're going to get into some of this stuff. At least the important social media, the big censorship stories. And Jim, if you just want to keep throwing comments up, I'll be taking them as we muddle our way through these. I don't have any epic rants planned or anything. Starting with TheVerge.com. House leader calls for FBI investigation into Parler. The Oversight Committee plans to open its own probe. And I hate to say this because I've had a couple people try to get me into Parler, and I registered, and then there was a tech issue. This was like weeks ago, and I was like, yeah, I'll wait till they get their user interface together at least before I invest any effort into this. And I'm kind of like glad I didn't invest after recent shutdowns, but who knows where this is going. My main I had this sort of irrational aversion to Gab and to Parler and some of these other alternative social media sites because they're sort of conservative bias. And you go, well, shit, everything else is pretty darn liberal and statist biased. Can't really complain about that. But I'm also just wary of jumping onto anything before it gets sufficient momentum. But anyway, in a letter sent to FBI Director Christopher Wray, House Oversight Chair Carolyn Maloney, Democrat in New York, called for the Bureau to conduct a robust examination of the role that the social media site Parler played in the January 6th pro-Trump assault in the Capitol. Maloney said that the committee intends to open its own investigation and requested a meeting with FBI officials regarding the status and scope of any future investigations into the social media platform. So remember, Parler has already been kicked off of the Play Store and the Apple App Store. No, maybe not the Google Play Store, but Amazon Web Hosting. So they're basically getting squeezed out. They were done for a while, and what the experience that we've seen with Parler recently does represent a new kind of censorship, of basically an entire platform being censored for something being said by a few of the people on it, and saying, well, if you host this platform, you have to police the speech on it to some external standard. It literally has created this legal environment where a free speech platform cannot exist by definition, because if you say our platform is free speech, you can say whatever you want, zero censorship, no matter what, even if it's fraud, all we're going to do is tag it, or or let we're going to have people prosecuted for the fraud, but the communication itself we're not going to stop, or violence or violent threats, like we're not going to stop the threats, because that part, it's there, it's illegal, it's speech, but it's there, it's in the open, it's on the record. We're not going to censor the record or take it down. We will make sure that our platform is available to legitimate law enforcement purposes or security purposes, for holding people accountable to stop violent threats becoming violent acts. But actual free speech, no, you can't even do that. Like, that will not exist in the current legal environment, because someone, and if you have a platform that the establishment doesn't like, they can send a troll farm full of bots spewing violent hate speech on your platform. And whenever you can't whack-a-mole get knocked down right away to censor because it doesn't meet your terms of use that you established, is because you had to appease this anti-free speech standard with your platform. Well, now you're not adequately policing, and so next target up is Telegram, and this is scary because Telegram's a fucking messaging app. It's like, yes, you can use it for broadcast because you create channels people can plug in, like we have now with ours, with t.me/Adam versus the Man, if you want to check it out. And I thought Telegram was that kind of sacred space, but no. So this next headline from Zero Hedge, yeah, and keep that up, because this is what we're building now as an alternative channel to broadcast, is to be able to put our live show up there. We need some help with organizing. If people want to volunteer, working for me directly, or for CJ helping out with post-production or distribution or social media promotion of the show, or just managing this channel, getting good content out there and creating an alternative broadcast channel. But already, as soon as I go, oh, all right, yes, Telegram, oh shit, now Telegram's under fire. And it's pretty scary to see that even just a basic messaging app like this is subject to the same thing, because it's being used to communicate violent threats. And you go, so's text messaging. So the telephone itself, since the dawn of the technology, has been used for crime. You don't shut down the telecoms. No, what they're doing is shepherding speech into areas that they can control. It is a new kind of censorship. And like I said earlier in the show, with the mask thing, right? It's just, hey, we've always been the rebels, but now you can see our smiles and we're the only ones, and they really stand out. It's sort of like the same thing with censorship. Now that it's coming online, you can see it in these more, like, they've always been censoring, they've always been manipulating through the mainstream media and controlling the conversation. But now, in order to maintain that grip, they have to squeeze out apps, sites, conversation services like Parler and Telegram. So the headline from Zero Hedge: lobby group sues Apple to remove Telegram app from store for allowing hate speech. By Tyler Durden. And already there's just in that headline so much wrong. I don't have to read much of this story, but I first of all, I do trust Zero Hedge to have honest headlines. But this lobby group is suing Apple to remove Telegram for allowing hate speech. Talk about missing the point. You're not just scratch out all the words in the middle. You go, lobby group goes after sources of hate speech. You go, like, okay. Maybe that's not an interesting title, but it's like, guns don't kill people, people kill people. You're going to go after gun manufacturers for murders? Okay, well then, people go after, hammers when someone gets killed with a hammer. But this is like not going after the hardware store. It's not just going after the hardware manufacturer. It's going after the guy that cut down the wood to make the handle for the hammer that the guy got killed with, and letting the murderer himself go free. It's absolute insanity. And this is why libertarianism is an ethical message of responsibility is so important, because one of the things that it does is it places accurate responsibility on things based on clear ethic violations, based on a straightforward ethical standard, based on self-ownership and the non-aggression principle. So needed now more than ever, of course, maybe just to reveal the absurdity of this. So, yeah. All right. Got to at least read a little bit of this story. Telegram has seen a surge in users since Twitter and Facebook permanently suspended President Trump last week. The service gained more than 25 million new users in just 72 hours, taking the total users to over 500 million. The platform promotes itself as a service that believes in free speech and a strong privacy ethic, often polarizing itself from the likes of Facebook-owned WhatsApp and Microsoft-owned Skype. Now, by the way, about it being private or encrypted, I don't believe in all of that. But if it's run with that expectation, that's what's important. Make government work to get their backdoor access. But anyway, the Coalition for a Safer Web, I don't know, and pick apart the funding behind that, I'm sure, has called for it to be completely deleted from big tech app stores. In particular, the group has filed a lawsuit against Apple, alleging that it has failed to hold Telegram accountable for violating its terms of service. The complaint, filed in the U.S. District Court for Northern California, accuses Telegram of allowing anti-Semites, neo-Nazis, and white supremacists to use the platform to foment hate. The lawsuit claims, quote, Telegram currently serves as the preferred neo-Nazi white nationalist communications channel, fanning anti-Semitic and anti-Black incitement during the current wave of protests across America. And anytime I see someone accused of being a Nazi like this, I'm like, oh, who did they piss off? Not are they Nazi? And it's like, this is just, yeah. The story says it also states that extremists are set to migrate to Telegram in bigger numbers following Apple, Google, and Amazon's attempts to wipe Parler off the internet completely. So you see, this is sort of chasing us around. But I think that the real reason the establishment is coming after Telegram so hard is because of what they have figured out with the broadcast channels. Not because those broadcast channels are being used for hate, but that someone like me can use that as an alternative to YouTube, because I don't need YouTube subscription distribution services. As long as I have somewhere that I can host content anywhere, I can broadcast it to anyone who's connected to me on the Telegram app. So I don't know, how much we're going to invest in this. I mean, right now, this is a significant focus of our distribution efforts for Adam versus the Man to get on the Adam versus the Man Telegram group. So again, t.me/Adam versus the Man. Please check that out and help us develop that. But if they successfully shut down Telegram, I think the formula that Telegram has developed is going to be enough that it might become a protocol for a mesh web or a decentralized or blockchain-based form of communication. That there would be a truly decentralized version is entirely plausible now. I mean, at some point, they're just going to chase us to a point where they can't touch us any longer. And that's it at blockchain. And so maybe it's got to happen incrementally. Audiences have to move. Enough people have to get pissed off. It takes time. There's a lot of momentum in these conversations and expectations. I mean, even for me, I hate to admit it, I have the YouTube app on my phone, and occasionally when I'm bored, I look at my subs there, knowing that it's totally manipulated, and I don't get to see people I really like, except JP Sears. Love that guy. But let's see. So all of this coming up against Telegram just makes me afraid that we might be investing in a Telegram channel, and that's only going to be a temporary thing. So how is Telegram responding to this? Our next story from TechCrunch.com. Telegram blocks dozens of hardcore hate channels threatening violence. So much for free speech, right? With many social networks suddenly reevaluating their policies in light of recent political violence in the U.S., the popular messaging app Telegram has begun chipping away at an organized network of neo-Nazi and white supremacist accounts flourishing on the platform. Telegram confirmed to TechCrunch that it has removed dozens of channels over the course of the last day, citing concerns that the accounts were inciting violence. As Telegram says, quote, our terms of service expressly forbid public calls to violence. Now, if that's their standard, it's a private platform, they want to hold people, I don't have a problem with that. And if they define that, that's great. But eventually, if it becomes problematic, and hey, long live Telegram. If that's their standard and they hold to that, and it's no, you can't publicly call for violence. Okay, if it's a public channel that anybody can access on those, you can't make a call for violence. That's their only standard, and they want to adhere to that. Then long live Telegram. They'll probably be around for a long time. If they get bullied into saying that, well, see, I would say, what's a public call to violence? Every military recruiting commercial, every Democrat or Republican political campaign ad, those are public calls to violence to enforce those policies through cops and soldiers one way or another. But no, they're not going to apply it to that. They're going to apply it, obviously, to reinforce the status quo in the way that they do. But if that's it, okay, fine. And then it's going to be a while before there is a need or a drive towards a completely blockchain-based alternative. But this is sort of where we are right now. They are, even though Telegram has that standard, and I don't want to second guess. I don't know, like if I was starting their service or if I was running it, like what would mine be, or if I was, choosing which blockchain-based one to endorse. If there was one that said our blockchain has a mechanism for shutting things down if they're public calls for, although I don't know how you would even build that into a truly decentralized, open source thing. But maybe there are, apps that run on top of the blockchain that allow for different, mechanisms of control of what you are consuming for data off of that blockchain, but not what people can post. So, anyway, the story goes on. Again, this number, pretty impressive, right? Telegram saw an explosion in growth this month with 25 million new users signing up within 72 hours, while the timing overlaps with some U.S. social media users denouncing mainstream social platforms. The influx stemmed from viral misinformation about changes to WhatsApp's data sharing policies with Facebook, which is already notorious for privacy failings. Okay. As Telegram founder Pavel Durov said in a post to his Telegram channel on Tuesday, quote, people no longer want to exchange their privacy for free services. They no longer want to be held hostage by tech monopolies that seem to think they can get away with anything as long as their apps have a critical mass of users. And that's why they're really coming after Telegram, of course. So, Twitter now, we have an interesting mechanism on Twitter. So, CJ, if you would just roll tape on this in our next link, this is from @TwitterSupport. It's just, I think it's got some goofy music behind it, right? So I'm going to have to narrate it. So go ahead and keep my mic on here. Whales are not real. This is Twitter imitate. They're robots funded by government to watch us. I'll just let it play. Yeah. Spoiler alert, you can't trust everything you read online. That's why we're introducing Birdwatch. Create notes like on tweets that add context to tweets. Now, so some people might think, Adam, this is crazy. This is now social media platforms, policing the truth. Together we can keep each other better informed. Join us at birdwatch.twitter.com. The thing is, I actually support mechanisms like this that are sort of crowdsourced, where where nothing can be censored, but people can tag stuff. Like, think about, content on Facebook, for example, in contrast to what they do. And I've said this for years now, that if someone was posting something offensively racist on Facebook, what happens now is you flag it, Facebook censors take it down, and then it might have been somebody who that guy met at a party in middle school 40 years ago, and they get to flag his racist post, and it gets taken down, and now that guy's neighbor, who he just friended yesterday, doesn't know that he has a racist neighbor. You're sweeping the problem under the rug with that kind of censorship. And there's an obvious alternative. And if Facebook has the programmers to do this, they could have said, if you see a racist post, you flag it as racist, and it's literally flagged, not flagged to be censored. It's flagged as racist, as in there's a flag attached to it. And then if you want to witness uncensored Facebook, then you turn off flags and flags disappear. And if you want to turn on flags, and like what I would have flags turned on, because I mainly out of curiosity, I want to see what people are flagging, right? And then you would have your censorship options, right? Like you could say, well, if something has any flags, put a screen on it and only reveal the content if I choose to see it. And I would have that on for violent or gory content. I don't want to be surprised with that on Facebook. I might watch it if I was like I don't want horror fans to have to be squeamish like me. I don't want to see horror porn or gory stuff in my Facebook feed at random. So like I would actually have a screen setting that says, yes, if something is gore, and I would want any crypto or blockchain based social media platform to have this feature for me. I'd rather deal with it and not follow people who are going to do that than deal with censorship. But this is just my proof. My point with this is that this little thought exercise showing that this is possible proves. And by the way, Facebook has done stuff like this in limited ways, where they'll blur out and you click to view an image if it's been flagged. But it's combined with all this other censorship. So Twitter here, this thing with Twitter, this birdwatch thing is huge, because it's not as bad as censoring. It's adding context to it's flagging, and it could be done fairly. It's not going to be done perfectly fairly from the beginning, that's for sure. But if Jack comes out and says, look, birdwatch was such a success, we are now not, and then they introduce or some way that birdwatch is a way of flagging threats and reporting them to law enforcement instead of censoring them, reporting them appropriately or notifying potential victims. Maybe there's a way that this allows a transition to this, and this is how Twitter, maybe Jack, after censoring Donald Trump, is going, shit, I really don't want to have to do that again. Let's create a system like Adam's been talking about for years. I know, but there's I think that's where this is going inevitably. Next story from marketwatch.com. Facebook earnings still flourishing amid pandemic from the virus, which shall not be named, economic slowdown, and antitrust scrutiny. Investors' gusto, which led to 33% gains in 2020, rooted in advertising from more than 10 million advertisers and a flourishing digital economy. Surprise, surprise, the rich get richer amid the pandemic. And just remember, the story of this is not the virus. It's forced unemployment crisis. It's commercial real estate, retail, commercial real estate crisis. It's the residential real estate crisis. It's now the restaurant business, the restaurant crisis. It's really and then the eviction crisis that is still unfolding slowly. But the rich get richer at the expense of the rest of us. And of course, Mark Zuckerberg is no different. Facebook Inc. has been able to retain a Teflon sheen on Wall Street with a succession of blowout quarters of advertising revenue. Neither a ravaging pandemic economic meltdown nor antitrust lawsuit by the Federal Trade Commission have blunted the momentum of the social media giant, and analysts expect more of the same Wednesday when Facebook reports its fiscal fourth quarter earnings. Shocking, right? Now, an interesting story from the Fulcrum. Despite claims of biased conservatives thrive on social media by Sarah Swan, social media has become a punching bag for conservatives who claim Facebook and Twitter have been silencing them. But in reality, the political right thrives on such platforms, a new report found. I'm skeptical. Let's see. The 28-page study released Monday by New York University Stern Center for Business and Human Rights debunks the claim of anti-conservative bias on social media and shows how well the GOP has used those platforms for messaging and fundraising. While the false pretense that social media sites are anti-conservative is not new, Republicans' ire was reignited last month after Twitter and other platforms banned President Donald Trump, who's not a conservative by any stretch of the imagination, just days before the end of his term. That crackdown has spurred debate over the role social media companies will play in regulating future content. Trump's So, as the report says, Trump's being exiled from those private social media channels should not be misconstrued as confirmation of the claim he and others on the right have made about platform bias. The Trump bans, while unprecedented, were based on reasonable determinations that he violated platform rules against sabotaging election results and inciting violence. Now, I don't want to, sidebar onto that at all here, but this is not proof. I don't think in and of itself that it, because if I may, stop and think of myself as a conservative for a second. Like, well, first of all, look at this. And the story, CJ, if you put this on stage, shows Facebook's top 10, the top performing link posts by U.S. Facebook pages in the last 24 hours are from 1, Fox News, 2, Fox News, 3, For America, 4, Ben Shapiro, 5, New York Times, and then RFA Burmese, I don't know what that is, 7, Breitbart, also conservative, VOA Burmese News, don't know what that is. But like, you go, well, if this is proof that conservatives are doing well, this is proof that 2 Burmese outlets are also doing freakishly well when it comes to top performing link posts by US Facebook pages. So this doesn't really prove anything, but I think it does actually reinforce my general narrative. That's why I'm sharing the story with you. Of course, that's why anybody shares anything on social media these days. But seriously, with this, a conservative would retort, well, we would be doing better if we weren't being disadvantaged and censored. And I think that the censorship is more insidious than simple left right anyway. And if you think of let's say the market for media, if you had to divide it between liberal, conservative, and libertarian, and libertarian is the threat to both bigger markets. We are the insurgent media market, so to speak. Say we're 10% and they're both 45% each. Well, if they want to censor us 10% and make the general audience not see that, well, then they can censor a handful of the extremists of the conservative side, and 10% of them, and all of the libertarians, and then pretend like that's not happening. So this whole left right thing in social media, don't buy it. The Independent, for just to end our social media part of this block today with a little fun celebrity intervention, Pamela Anderson announces she's leaving social media. Quote, "I am free." The Baywatch star also urged her followers to find the strength and inspiration to follow your purpose and not be seduced by wasted time. And that's really the important message here, whether you're taking whatever your use or position is on Facebook and social media. The beautiful, powerful message in this is to just say that not be seduced by wasted time. And the technology of social media is so uniquely insidious. As she says, that's what they want and can use to make money, including that social media companies have control over your brain. Yeah, so I would just say, I don't want to say goodbye to social media. I am a huge fan of the internet and what it makes possible in this realm of communication, but don't be a mindless user, be a conscientious user for whatever that means for you, and to make sure that it isn't turning into wasting time. So CJ in the Producers Club chat is saying, I'm going to say this, we need to hear out Pam Anderson, indeed. All right, so let's see, just a couple minutes here before we check in with Jim and your comments, see how many of these other headlines on related topics we can breeze through. GreatGameIndia.com has this headline, how the CIA created Signal Messenger app recently after WhatsApp threatened to change its privacy policy. Who knows how true that was. People were nudged to the alternate Signal Messenger app. However, serious discussion of Signal's history and funding sources have been entirely absent from the puff pieces by the media. The investigation reveals how CIA created the Signal app funded by the U.S. government to protect communications of its agents deployed for regime change. So if you want to get into that, there's more to that story. Link is in the notes. This is again, I'll say this one more time because I'm so well networked. I've been around. I've got a few thousand contacts in my phone, whatever. And I have Telegram and Signal and WhatsApp and a few other messaging apps. And recently, like the last month or so, I've been every time someone joins Signal or Telegram, who's with their phone number, whose phone number is in my contacts, I get an alert, and there's just been surges on both platforms, Signal and Telegram, a few every day of people joining those. Something we have, unfortunately, to look forward to from the Washington Post via MSN.com: pressure builds on Biden Democrats to revive net neutrality rules. Not going to be the death of the internet. The sky is not falling, but this could be a major setback for the freedom of the internet, or at least another hurdle. BBC has this headline: Zuckerberg's Biden problem. Before the Cambridge Analytica story had broken, before Facebook's acknowledgement that his platform had been used to help incite ethnic cleansing in Myanmar, before the WhatsApp lynchings in India, before QAnon and the Proud Boys, Mark Zuckerberg had the world at his feet. So much so, in fact, that at the start of 2017, he decided to tour America. In a Facebook post, he said he wished to talk to more people about how they're living, working, and thinking about the future. His goal is to speak to people in all 50 states, to get out and engage with real Americans. It was seen by some as the part of a start of a possible 2020 presidential bid, something he always denied. His potential candidacy was seriously debated in the press. He had money, drive, and power. But yeah. So anyways, more to this. There's a lot about Zuckerberg and potentially running for running for president of the Facebook states of America. The Wall Street Journal has this also: inside the Google Facebook ad deal, at the heart of a price-fixing lawsuit, lawmakers have called for an investigation into the tech giant's contract dubbed Jedi Blue, which allegedly allowed for auction rigging. And I need to wrap up because I'm really getting some cotton mouth here. But let's see, what other I guess the other headlines we have here deserve a little more analysis. Studyfinds.org, jumping ahead a couple, CJ. Forget 5G, record-breaking laser signal from satellite could be key to faster smartphones. Yeah. So even we talk about today's technology being capable of mesh nets, that is communication, that is the effect of the internet through, the name kind of says it all, right? A mesh network. Your internet-capable devices, your laptops, your smartphones, whatever. Right. Well, really, your smartphones, maybe like a hotspot becomes a transmission hub. You're able to have direct communication between devices that don't need central servers. So there's so much even on the horizon technologically for battery capacity, for transmission rate, for memory, the memory that you have on your smartphone. I mean, imagine when we get to like the next exponential scale higher of data that you can have on your smartphone. We're not going to be using it for videos that are higher resolution than 4K that your eyes can't even appreciate. No, we're going to be using that. Oh, what my cell phone that I have in my pocket is now as capable as a server farm. Well, then let's at least have mesh nets, right? So finally, to round out our tech block today, this story from Barron's.com. This is just a sobering note to end on. Putin warns against tech giants becoming competitors to states. Russian President Vladimir Putin on Wednesday warned against the increasing influence of large tech companies, which he said are competing with states. Yeah, heaven forbid. Don't steal. The government hates competition, right? And with that, let's get Comment Jim Freedom up here to check in with our audience again. Jim, any more comments worth sharing? I didn't see any on the screen during that.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I should have put them up or something. I know you told me that you're not afraid of troll comments or negative comments. There's kind of a debate going on. I don't know what kind of debate it is. There's a guy that's here's a question from him. See what do you think about it. Thor's Hammer. He says, "How can you claim to love anything if you're not willing to hate that which is a threat to that what you love?"
How does the Yoda quote with hate go? Hate leads to fear leads to anger leads to suffering. No,
Basically, this guy hates you because you're Jewish, and he thinks the Jews own everything. They own the media, and I'm serious. I'm dead serious. He's talking about them, their race. He talks a lot about
here's
race,
why.
and the
No,
Jews own everything.
Here's why. Because if you choose to go to the path of the dark side, if you choose to hate something because it is a threat to that which you love, eventually you will have all of your love driven out by that hate. Because I could hate every meteor in the universe that might eventually hit this planet and kill all of us. I ain't got time for that shit. I could hate every cop who might shoot my dog if my neighbor calls 911 on me. I ain't got time for that shit. No, 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 no. You don't hate the threat. That is not the answer. You come to peace with the threat and you deal with it rationally in order to effectively protect that which you love. Hatred only lessens your ability to actually effectively protect.
Okay, there you go. Thor's hammer. Let that sink in. Just stop the video now and think, absorb that. One more question. I got Kyle Bowl here. Adam, what's your thoughts on the latest California bill that would eliminate requirements to run for sheriff? Have you heard about that?
That would be nice. I assume that restrictions are like you can't be a felon like me or something like that. And
Right.
sheriff is an elected position. Really does set the standard for law enforcement in a county. And it's a nice hypothetical that isn't really effectively in practice, that as such, the county sheriff is the highest senior effective law enforcement in that county and can even tell the feds to fuck off if they feel like it. But that doesn't really happen, and the feds don't really fuck off when sheriffs tell them to. So uh, um, it's kind of a false ideal at this point. But the idea that that person should be elected by the people without restrictions, and that people, there should be an immediate recall mechanism if they make a mistake and elect some fuckwad who's really playing with standards of justice in their county or abusing that authority. But yeah, that ultimate standard of what is justice, what do we want from our local government for practical enforcement of justice being set by the people through an election in a race for county sheriff. I think that's an important thing to hold on to.
For
I think
sure.
government restrictions great.
Outstanding. All right. So that's all I got with comments. Let's listen to what CJ has to say.
Well, hello, gentlemen. Real quick, Adam, I just want to kind of show everybody kind of a year out perspective that we'll eventually get into in further detail on a future broadcast. But about a year out on this channel, this is the reach of Adam versus the man. And if I was the stock market, I would kind of wonder what was said here and these time frames, and as it dips down and then shoots way up to the day before the election, where the reach that day was 5.1 million people impressions, excuse me. And so like what causes these what appear to be unnormal growth curves for a business over a year? Like, this can't be natural. I think this is more artificial than anything. Plus, we had, periods in here where we didn't even broadcast for fear of losing the channel, still maintaining a pretty solid core impression on here for, so to understand these numbers in censorship, how do they just skyrocket and then just tumble down? I mean, we're not GameStop, I see us, if we even click into, in the revenue and the engagements, I mean, look at the views up from a year ago, up 900, greater than 999% from the year before. Like, I would call this a pretty successful year as far as showing that there's an impression of the show, but where's the actual engagement on the show? And again, remember, people have attention spans that can only be measured in nanoseconds. Well, according to YouTube, the Adam versus the Man attention span is merely 29 seconds.
Well, a lot of that is the fighting hole video is pretty short.
Right. But that's my point. So that video, the way we set up Google when we plugged everything in was that if there's going to be a video that we're going to put in front of the audience, it's your first one. And that's why we get the comments like, wow, this guy's still alive. Did he make it back? Is he still dead? I don't know this guy. And then they have 12 years of your content. So, of course, going through your comment feed in the back office and the analytics, it's just like a war zone in there that, I mean, I feel like we haven't attended to the post-production comments. And as a result, it's just the Wild West of the comment section. And
well, I don't want to, if I may first, before you finish everything there, I don't want to talk about policing, but in terms of engaging and getting in with that, if someone wants to volunteer to help, let us know. You want to sign up to help us. We're happy to give people access to get in and take advantage of this. Sorry, CJ, go ahead.
No, and again, that's what we'd like to know. We're trying to figure out how to read these analytics in a way that helps engage the subscriber base. I mean,
the survivors,
the survivors of the purge, I guess. And that brings me to another point with the, you always say it's kind of weird, 250,000 subscribers, where'd they all go? I'm kind of curious to how many of your following, your subscriber base, that either have already been purged out or purged themselves out because they don't want to participate in that to begin with. So it's kind of interesting. It's interesting to see, the response to people that just tune in from the Man in the Hole video to today and have no context of what you've done since you climbed out of that hole. And so when we get comments like, that we see in the comments post-production, to me, it's like watching somebody wake up for the first time and not know what world they woke up in. And so they don't know how to articulate in the comments. And the ones that hate, oh, it's clear. Like you just said, that guy hates you because you're a Jew, this, that, and the other. Like, that guy's going to exist no matter what. Fuck that guy, right? But, sorry, YouTube, I'll check the box. But, again, at the end of the day, we're going to have some weird people in the comments. So I would ask you like this, Adam, maybe we take some time to find your more popular videos, the ones that people are starting to discover. Like you said earlier, your next biggest video is the DC video. Maybe we take a half hour and revisit that and go through those comments live and just take like, a little segment out of the show to do that. Let's re-engage with past videos. Maybe not this week. Maybe we can take some.
So tomorrow we got a big COVID block and some catching up on some international news. And then Friday we have a call-in show as always. And we have tons. We have a really exciting cutting edge of good news Friday show. So we're booked.
I'm not saying this week. I'm saying on a dry show, Adam. Let's go back down memory lane. And let's just visit that, because again, you want to talk about free speech? That's your platform.
Tomorrow, Spike Cohen joins us at 10 a.m. Pacific time, and what is this? No guests Friday. That's good. So, but tomorrow, Spike Cohen and COVID.
Do we need to create the link right now, or can I just send it to Spike the same way every other person gets the link? Or do we need to lay out a golden rug, a red carpet?
Talk to Marcus.
All right, I'll talk to Marcus. You guys, we'll see you tomorrow.
All right, Jim, give us the promos.
Okay, please visit AdamVersusTheMan.com. When you're there, click on the Patreon link. That's how you can support Adam and the production of the show with $1, $5, $10, or $50 a month in donations. $10 is the sweet spot to get you access to the Producers Club, which is our private chat, and links to the show, help produce the show basically in the private chat. And the public Telegram channel is listed down there, t.me/Adam versus the Man, so you can be in the public chat Telegram channel for everything that has to do with the show. And after that, go back to adamversusman.com and visit the shop and check out all the merch that we have available for your purchase. The Producers Club members and better patrons get 15% off and free shipping every time without fail. After that, go to cigarfederation.com and check out all their different various exotic flavors of cigars. And you make sure you use promo code ADAM10, ADAM10, all caps. Get you 10% off of your entire order there. And then lastly, please visit the Garden of Freedom Instagram page so you can keep up on everything that Adam is doing up there in Gardenia. You can see when it's done snowing. You can see when it snows crazy. You can see when he's building new stuff, all the fun, cool animals. You can literally see pictures of the cats when they were actually, I think there's a few on there of when they were literally being born. And then there's a few on there when they're old enough to be super tiny and super adorable. And then there's some when they're pretty much almost fully grown. So you can watch the cats of Gardenia grow up through Instagram on there. Enjoy that. So that's all I got.
All right. Play us out, CJ.
Smoke weed every day. Sorry, Adam, it's not pulling up. Sorry.
I held that. I took as long a hit as I possibly could, waiting for the music to come on. All right. Mwah, peace and love, y'all. Choose happiness and be excellent to each other.